as a manual or as a cruise control car because of this stud right here. This stud holds all the cruise control computer stuff, and it was still bolted from the top, and there's a nut from the top that you have to get, which is a total pain. So through the cluster again for that. If you have a cruise control car, keep that in mind, because I was kind of at a loss for why I couldn't get this out, and that was why. So definitely makes things tighter, which they were already tight, so it's not the most fun, but it's still doable. But we'll just pull the stud out and put it in the new pedal assembly there. Thread that in with another nut, but just so I remember. Otherwise, we are gonna start drilling that hole. I'll show you after I'm done. Okay, so we got the hole drilled there. See the daylight coming through. Drilled right there, and it is a 13/16 inch hole. Just use the step bit. That seems to fit pretty well. I think you could go out to 7/8, but it might be a little bit big, so better to keep it reasonable here. So I'm gonna pop the pedal assembly back in now. The only thing I may have to end up drilling is these two holes, just to throw a bolt and nut through to keep the pedal assembly a little stabler. At least one of them. So we'll go from there. But yeah, this one is already, that bolt hole is already there. There's a bolt in it, in my car at least. So I just pulled that bolt that's up with the other two there, and then we'll get at least one of these drilled and put in there so it's nice and stable. Yep, so we'll pop that back in there. This can be an interesting kind of arrangement trying to get this in here, but basically you can try and keep it at an angle like that, get it up and over the steering column, and get the this over the brake booster. So, and then kind of turn it up into it. Hopefully it'll go in fairly easily. That's the idea. This car is really tough with all this cruise control stuff. That's just right here. This is all cruise. That's really in the way. It's a lot easier on the cars without him. So that's what's giving me all the trouble right now. Alright, so we pulled the trans there and the flex plate. Flex plate with the LH 2.4, this is my cam sensor there, or crank position sensor, up top there. So the big thing to remember is the orientation of where the two blank holes are. They were centered right on this peg. Good practice would be to just put it at top dead center so it's easy to remember. I didn't do that though, so we're just gonna remember that. We also have it on video, so that helps. We're going to replace the rear main and the seal that's there, and the oil pan seal now, I guess. It also looks like we're going to have to pull this out. I don't even remember from the first time I did it, to replace the pilot bearing in there instead of that. So we'll probably use the white bread trick for that. We'll figure it out. We just used this jaw puller from Harbor Freight. You could probably do it by hand. It came out really easy. So yeah, it's not really even press fit or anything, so just pulled right out more or less. Probably do it with a pair of pliers or vice grips or something. The manual pilot bearing is held in with a clip, which if you're grabbing a swap from the junkyard, you want to be sure to grab. There's a little recess in there for this clip right there. That's what holds the pilot bearing in. It's not press fit either, so just pop that in. So the pilot bearing, same kind of deal, just pressed right in. This clip, just get started and work your way around, and should slide right in. That is actually in there. Yep. And that's part of your pilot bearing install. So that's good to go now. What did you do on purpose, Morgan? Hey, that's illegal.
What?
Can't do that.
You did it.
Uh-uh. So, threw the clutch and the flywheel on there, did the rear main seal and the oil pan gasket. So that should be all set now. Got this oriented so that the sensor holes line up with that pin, just like the one we took off of there. To tighten the flywheel, what we did is put pry bar through this hole and went up and through on top of this pin, dowel pin, and into the teeth. Pretty good amount of forward pressure. It's kind of a two-person job. I don't know how I did it alone the first time. Maybe I was just stronger back then. And then the tightening torques I found were from a Haynes manual, I believe. They were 33 foot-pounds plus 60 degrees for the flywheel bolts. So we did 33 foot-pounds in a star pattern. And then we used this angle, torque angle guy. I think this is from Harbor Freight. It was super cheap to do 60 degrees past that, which is pretty tight. It was kind of a pain to do. And then the pressure plate to flywheel bolts is about 20 foot-pounds, I think, somewhere in there. I got new bolts for those because the heads were all stripped out on them. I could probably just do hex bolts and it wouldn't matter, but I'm not too sure, so I went with those. So the clutch should be good. We're gonna go ahead and throw the trans in now, hopefully, if Morgan wants to help. She loves it. Look at her, she loves it. This is the M47 that's going in. Got new grease on there, new throw out bearing, and we greased the ball. And then got reverse light wiring there. I redid this. We got a new transmission mount, and this. I did little sections of PVC to replace the rubber that was shot. This whole assembly was just wiggling like crazy up and down. We are not going to be putting the trans in with the shift lever on here. That doesn't work very well. I don't know that you can do it. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and pull this guy. This pin comes out of the center there. There's a Allen key on the end that you have to loosen. It's already loosened. And then this can come undone. Mine, I made it feel a little bit better with a copper and a brass washer there to fill in the space from these bushings being crap. We'll pop those back in when the time comes. That sits there. And then the only other thing to take this out, sometimes this plate right here, your reverse lockout plate, this guy, sometimes that gets in the way of actually pulling the shifter out. This one I just ground back a tiny bit on both sides so it can come off without me messing with that. So the way that comes off is snap ring pliers or just a little pick. And we are going to pull this guy up and out, and then the whole thing will just lift right out. Keep that all together. You need everything there. This is also how you would do your shifter bushings. This is one of the bushings here, and then there's one in there. They feel okay. They're not great, but I don't have the parts, so. Overall, the shifter feels a lot better than it did, just given the fact that these are fixed now. So, should be good to throw it in. This in there. This in there. We're going in there. We have our little transmission jack thing. That doesn't do the best job because I still have to lift the transmission up to that. Luckily, the M47 isn't crazy heavy. I think it's like 80 pounds-ish. It's not too bad. Just throw out your back a little bit. Remember, kids, always lift with your back, not your legs. Get it up there, put it in. Crossmember in, that just bolts right in. You do want to grab the one from the manual trans. It's a little different, and there's actually, I'll show you, there's actually other bolt holes all along here, which was how they figured out how to have a manual or an auto. So you can see it was one notch forward for the auto, so we moved it, or one notch backwards, we moved it forward. Just clean out that hole, move it over, and then you have a little metal spacer in here too on these. If people jack your car up from there, which usually happens, so it's a little dented here, not too bad though. It'll just pull back down and it's fine. New transmission mount in there. I'm gonna throw the shift lever in before I throw the drive shaft in, just so it's easier to get to this. Otherwise, we got the drive shaft. That's the front half. Bolts onto the guibo or flex joint, and then we have the center support bearing and the center support bearing crossmember thing there, bracket. So that's going to go in, and then the back half will go onto this too.